So they said, let's have a pact that you treat us the same. And so I'm just using that as an example. There are many. For instance, even in adverts, when they advertise nice cars and all that, they'll advertise us with us, women, nice, beautiful, fine. But it's the association that here is an object that you can buy and possess, and you associate it with a woman. And an object that you buy and possess, you do anything to it. So it's all those things that need to be addressed. It's not just one thing. And also us as women, we are mothers, some of us. You are young, but us, lots of women who are mothers, they don't treat their sons and their daughters the same. And then they expect their sons to know equality when they are adults. Children bring back to society what society taught them as children. So it's a whole spectrum. If we had a whole day, we could discuss a lot. But I'm just saying, for me, it's all those things that we have to look at. Because if you treat your son as a little prince, he'll behave like that. And you treat your daughter as a little Cinderella, she will behave like that. And in fact, I also read somewhere that if you train young women in karate, in these disciplines, they say that people who attack women in the streets or out there, somehow when a woman shows confidence and they don't go for her, they go for the person who looks a bit meek. And so I think one of the things we have to do for our young women is to do that, so that they also have confidence and don't look at like easy prey to people. So it's a big topic, but I will leave it at that. And then the last question was about the skills revolution and the blue economy. Yes, it's true. I'm very passionate about the skills revolution because I think there is no country that can develop to its full potential without the skills. And there's a big shortage in Africa. So that's why we introduced the issue of the skills revolution. And the skills at all levels, as I said. But when you link it to the blue economy, we already, when I was at the AU, we were talking to some of the countries like Norway and so on. Because, for instance, the Norwegians, their economy, almost their entire economy is based on the ocean. From the time of the Vikings, then they got oil from the ocean as well. So we were beginning to work with them to see how they can assist. But we have worked in Africa to encourage ship owners. We have established an organization called Women in Maritime, because it's clear that as we pay more attention to the blue economy, we need to also have the skills. Without the skills, you can't do shipbuilding. Without the skills, you cannot run even the ships, even if you bought them. But for me, we could start somewhere, because we export as a continent and import. 90% of those imports and exports are transported on the maritime highways. So they are transported by sea. So we need to have fleets. But even before we have fleets, we can say to those ship owners, if you are taking stuff here out or bringing stuff here, a certain percentage of the workers on your ship should be from here and trained, and they will not refuse. Because a lot of the ship owners, when we were talking to the Norwegians, for instance, they were saying Norway is not able to supply the human resources they need for their fleet, because they have almost the biggest fleet. So they get Thais, they get Chinese, they get Filipinos. So why not Africans? Because a lot of their stuff comes here and out of here. But eventually, Africa must, and South Africa must own fleets that transport. So we must be in the shipbuilding. We must have those skills. You'll be surprised. The country that owns a sizable fleet on the continent is a landlocked country. And that landlocked country realized that our exports, whether we're landlocked or coastal, go by sea. So we might as well have transport on the maritime highways. So they are only, they cooperate with a coastal country, but their fleet works. They are a landlocked country, and that's Ethiopia. Yes. So I'm just making it, they have a fleet because, South Africa doesn't have much. But just to show that it's doable, they don't have enough, they should get more. But also, there are lots of consumables that are used on those ship. But they are not ours. They buy everything, including water, from somewhere else. Why can't we say they must buy it from here if they are taking stuff out of here or bringing stuff here? So those kind of things initially, but in the long term, we should have. And it's not only the people who work in the ship, but the insurance that insures those goods. It's not our insurance. It's insurance that come from over the seas. So there's a whole value chain in the blue ocean, just in the transport. The logistics, taking things from the factory to the ports, from the ports, the insurance linked to that, the insurance that insures the boats, the goods that are taken, the people who work in there, the people who repair those ships, and then what's in the ocean. The Western countries, they've already mapped out the minerals on the ocean, including some of the oceans that some of us may be owning. Some of the places they are already doing, not on the continent yet, but soon, they are already doing deep sea mining from some of the small island states, the Pacific and so on. So the resources, as they deplete the resources on land, they are looking at the same resources because a lot of the same resources are in the ocean bed. So they are looking at that. I went to a world conference on the blue economy, and I was amazed how much resources are on the ocean bed. Besides the fisheries that we don't even benefit from as a continent, most of the people who fishing boats are not ours. So we need to establish that industry quite seriously. And of course, the tourism. You just need to go to Cape Town, see who's on the coast, go around the eastern seaboard, go around the north coast of KZN, who's on the coast. So we need to reclaim the sea and its resources. but we need to train the skills that need to work there. Oceanographers, marine biologists, shipbuilders. In the shipbuilders, lots of skills that are needed. Insurance company, there's a whole range of skills and lots of employment that we can get, because for the foreseeable future, we'll be importing and exporting through the sea. So that's my answer to that question. Then there was a question about, or still from you, about the institutions. You know, it's true that when we were doing Agenda 2063, we said the Africa we want. But we did look at the Africa we have. And we did identify certain things that we thought needed quite a lot of attention. And some of them are institutions and policies somewhere, some of the policies that need to be implemented, whether it's the Charter for Democracy or the peace and security architecture, where we then said we want to silence the guns. The Charter for Democracy speaks to what is expected in a participatory democracy, in a democracy where citizens really do have a say. And we recognize that, yes, there is democracy in Africa in most countries, but it still needs to evolve to be the democracy that we can say is ideal. You know, there is the peer review mechanism that was established. And we've been saying that peer review mechanism needs to be strengthened, because when it's used properly, it's very good. Some of you, I don't know what you are studying, but if there are any scholars around the issues of conflicts and so on, you will realize that the peer review, when they reviewed Kenya before 2007, they actually predicted almost what was going to happen and said it must, and identified the problems and said they must be addressed. And if they are not addressed, was sitting on a time bomb. That report is there. And even before they were corrected, that time bomb exploded in 2007. So that mechanism, if it's used properly, it can be very useful. We were even saying at the AU that that mechanism must be developed, because at the moment it's more political and social. And we were saying we need to develop it on the economic side so that we can peer review our own economies through that mechanism. But we need to develop it properly. So, and then the courts, there is the Human Rights Court, and it has now been agreed that that court its mandate must be extended to also deal with the issues that the criminal justice issues that the ICC the ICC may be dealing with. But the ratification of that amendment is very slow. That's why it hasn't come into force yet. Because even us as citizens, we do not look at what our heads of state agree there and then follow up in our countries to say, have you rectified? And so we need to do that. But in the meantime, you will recall, some of you, that there was the issue of the president of Chad, former president of Chad, Hissène Habré, who had committed serious human rights violations, killed people, mass graves. So the continent said, we can't wait for that court. We need to do something in the meantime without sending him to the ICC. So a court was established in Senegal just for that specific. He has been tried there and found guilty. He is now appealing, but that court was established by the AU, funded by member states, of course, and some donors, but he was found guilty. He's now appealing. We'll see what the appeal says. And there is also a section of reparations for the victims. So it's not like nothing is happening. So those institutions must be looked at. But also, what we also said was wrong is for us to be dependent too much on donors. And that's why we had to have a change in the way we fund even the commission, even the AU, because it's the commission and all the other organs. Because we said it is wrong to depend on donors for your programs, because who pays the piper calls the tune. And so we can't sit here and have a piper away calling the tune in our organization. So that's why this idea of taxing some of the imports, an import levy was introduced of 0.2% on some of the eligible imports so that there is predictable funding. But also, we are also looking at not just funding the organs and the AU Commission, but also going forward, if there is extra, to see how we can also assist in funding some of the infrastructure and so on. So just to say, yes, we looked at some of the issues. I can't exhaust it because we don't have time, but yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think there's something also worth noting that state enterprises and procurement policies need to be very transformative in its nature, because they can then also play a role in mainstreaming small and medium enterprises. You need to have a will, a political will from those that are leading those institutions. Because, for example, if you have assembled a train in Germany for the first time, for the second time, it should be able to be assembled in South Africa with products, with workers of South Africa. And we should not be ashamed about those things. And in the tendering and procurement system, there should be regulations that 60% of products that compose this subject, they should be coming from this country. And it's also going to be able to make these monopolies to be forced to do what is called skills transfer. And then by that, they'll be forced that we're not going to give you a tender. We're not going to give you a tender if you're not going to fulfill these requirements. And these requirements, for example, it can be 60% that the product must be composed of things that are coming from the country. The workers, the board must consist of black or this and that type of percentage. So part of the things that we need is a political will real. And most importantly is that state-owned enterprise must play a role in mainstreaming some of the small and medium enterprise unapologetically. You know how refreshing it is now to be in Uber, is that when you are listening to radio, is that you are listening to 90% local music. Our artists now are paid. They are not dying, being unburied. Now we must send SMSs worth 10 rand so that we can bury our artists. It cannot be a situation like that. So I'm just saying there are positivities. You just need militancy, political will. We cannot continue to call this radicalism that cannot feed our people. It needs to be something that we can touch and that we can feel. And government must not waste their time in terms of the will that is given by their people. So they should not be ashamed. I know most of the time when people, the tendering system is always treated as if black people look for shortcuts so that they can then go there. But by the way, people who benefit in tenders, there's big companies. And when one person, a black person, no, is looking for shortcuts, that one, he does not want to do this and that. So it's very important that we also make sure that procurement system and regulations are transformative and favors indigenous people unapologetically, especially in big projects. We give lots of projects to infrastructure, for example. How many of us know, by the way, that Transnet has assembled a train that is intercontinental? Just recently this week, under this government. So it means that if we can then be able parallel to do these things, what we can also do is that we also need to change the stigma around artisan. Because by that we can then be able to produce projects there that can be able to be one actual that tenders to these projects so that we can then be able to grow economy. And we no longer treat our people as small and medium enterprise business people. So there's a lot that needs to be done. As Mama said, that there's no blueprint about this thing. That is one, that you can do this. We can do all of these things simultaneously. But the state must not fear to have its pinch on white monopoly capital. Thanks.
Maybe just to add to what he has said, it's not just the state-owned enterprises, even our own procurement. Government is a big procurer of services. So I think through using that also, we can build some of the small and medium enterprises because we procure, whether it's for hospitals you procure for food, for linen, for most things. For the correctional services, you procure. For the defense, you procure. For many, many things. So we should be able to also use that. But then we should again come back to the skills, because we should not just say you can procure. We need people to be skilled so that they can be up to the job. And it's not difficult skills. I mean, if you are doing hospital linen, it's not difficult skills. Laundry, there's lots that we can leverage just using also our own budget as a procurer of services in many areas. I just wanted to add that in addition to the state enterprises.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, time has been fast spent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 questions this side and 2 questions this side, make that a round, and give our guests an opportunity to respond. May I plead with you all to just have it one question, succinct. I can believe we can all do that, so that we get, a really good response with quite a lot of substance to it. So I will start on my left and then I'll go to my right. So at the back and here. And then this side, I will go there at the back and right here in front. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back into the country, Your Excellency.